Happy Sunday! Welcome everybody back into another edition of Prime Sports World. Of course, we're bringing you the crossover in order to show we normally run on Saturdays. We're running on a Sunday due to scheduling conflicts. I've been David On Point Huffman. Right there is Mr. TJ Hopkins. Welcome into the show. If you're looking for consistent content, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Prime Sports World is a pretty good place to hang out. We go live basically every single day, bringing the most information, up-to-date information. Also, I have shared the StreamYard link into all of the places, including the main Prime Sports World Facebook page. So if you want to join us and talk a little NBA action, you're more than welcome to do so. And today, we're going to be breaking down that Southeast division that includes the reigning number one seed in the Eastern Conference, Miami Heat, with Jimmy Butler, who some people love and some people hate. If you are familiar with our show, you know how I stand on the Jimmy Butler scenario. Who's a big Jimmy Butler fan? Mr. TJ Hopkins. Happy Sunday, man. How are you?
All right. How are you?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm doing okay. My dad came to visit me here in Fort Wayne for the weekend. So that was a really nice first weekend. My dad got to come here and actually hang out as opposed to like moving furniture and stuff. So that was nice.
Always good. Always good.
Yeah. I may have sang too much karaoke last night for sure. I'm sure. you know how it goes. But let's break down that Southeast. Let's go to an overview. What are you thinking about the Southeast before we get into each individual team?
Well, obviously, this conversation starts and ends with the Miami Heat. They have had a stranglehold on the division for a couple years now. I don't know if the year the Hawks went to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know if they were what were they?
They were a 5 seed. They were a 5 seed. Yeah.
So I don't know if they
did not win their division. I think Miami was the number one seed in that division that year. I don't know where. That seems like forever ago, but yeah, they were.
Right, like
yeah. Maybe the Hawks. I don't know.
Like it seems like it was a long time ago, but it really wasn't a long.
It wasn't, but yeah, it feels like forever ago.
But yeah, this conversation starts and ends with Miami. When you think of Miami, you think of the Don, the Godfather. You think of Pat Riley, Mr. Armani suit himself, hair slicked back. You know, I am positive that Pat Riley has done some work for the mob. Like I am. Like think about all the places he's worked: L.A.,
New York, Miami.
Yeah. That has mob ties written all over it. You don't have to like Jimmy Butler, but you damn sure got to respect him. Like you got to respect him.
I respect. I may not like Jimmy Butler. I respect him though. Like, I mean, that comes back to the conversation as old as time. Like, Jimmy Butler, Paul George. I mean, it's just been a conversation me and you have had for like 10 years.
Yeah, like there was serious debate about who's the better player between. Like, it was like who's the better player. And who would you rather have between, like, it was like Jimmy Butler and I think Paul George. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, wow. I'm like, yeah, like that's how things have gone. That's how things have gone for Jimmy Butler.
I mean, Jimmy Butler's backstory is one of those stories that like because why the NBA is what it is. Like,
his backstory is what you make movies out of.
Yeah, for real. Like he was like homeless for a while. Like his life is crazy. Like
he's in the household. I think his mom kicked him out when he was 13.
Yeah.
And you go from that to what you are now, and it's not what he does in the regular season that's special. Like, because his numbers in the regular season aren't eye popping. It's 20 a game, 5-6 rebounds, anywhere from 4 to 6 assists a game, a steal to 2 steals a game. But it's like that's just his regular season. It's the playoffs where he just ramps it up, and all of a sudden he's in the conversations with Jason Tatum, with Giannis, and it's like, wait, like what? And so like you got 3 teams in this division where they are just what are you doing? Like that being Washington. that being Washington, Charlotte, and Orlando. Charlotte has been in the play in the last 2 years, and we talked about that. They've gotten embarrassed
both times.
both
Uh,
times, right?
But yeah, they lost by an average of like 30 points a game. Let's move into the Miami Heat, actually. So I've changed a little bit of the way I do these graphics on this show. So I'm just going to do starters and key reserves. I always just get tired of saying all those crazy names. I'm just being honest with you. Like, I was like, man, like none of these guys matter. Their starters, obviously, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Kyle Lowry, and then their key reserve, Tyler Hero, Caleb Martin, Victor Oladipo, re-signed with this. Gabe Vincent, Dwayne Dedman, and Nikola Jovic, who was their first-round pick. Eric Spoelstra is their head coach, and they're 53-29 last season. It's the number one team in the Eastern Conference last year. TJ, so
Yes.
some storylines going on with Miami Heat.
Storylines going on with the Miami Heat. Well, you got to a finals going on 3 years ago now. Obviously, you want to get back to that. So the storylines have to be one, health. How can because Kyle Lowry was pretty banged up last season, and it showed. Like he was not.
He wasn't good at all in the playoffs.
He wasn't.
Let's not sugarcoat stuff here. Like he wasn't good in the playoffs last year. Let's not, like, come on.
he wasn't good. Tyler Hero wasn't good in the playoffs at all. Victor Oladipo should definitely start coming back into the Oladipo he was prior to him being injured for like the last.
Prior to that quad injury that he had, that basically sidelined him for a year and a half.
2 years basically.
Yeah, basically.
I remember when you said like a year ago when his free agency hit, I'm like, no, you got to bring Oladipo back. I have to see that big three. I have to see some version of a big three with Miami where it's
Big
Jimmy. Don't do that. Where it's Jimmy, Bam, and somebody has to form the other part of that big three, whether it's Tyler Hero, whether it's Oladipo, like somebody has to form a part, the trio part of that big three, right? And they obviously feel some type of way about Oladipo because if they didn't, guess what you don't do? You don't re-sign him.
Oh, for sure. Damn not. I mean, they signed him to a team-friendly deal, so bringing him back was pretty good, pretty luxury when he comes to the Miami Heat. Because he hasn't been remotely good in like 2 years.
So
he's for sure a stone's throw away from where he was like when he was on the Pacers, but he was like all NBA guy.
So like now he can finally have an off season where he can just hoop. He can just work on his craft. He ain't rehabbing. He ain't doing none of that. He can just work on your game.
I mean, that's one of those things you talk about all the time, like where you basically you rehab for a year, and then like the next year is the year where you improve your game. And I mean, Victor Oladipo turned down a lot of money. He's one of those guys that like people talk about him all the time about when like that being like people give Dennis Schroeder a lot of shit because of like the contract he turned down.
Yeah,
Victor Oladipo turned down a shitload of money too.
Well, and I think where people mess up with it's like when you're hurt, it's like you try to do both. Like you try to work on your game and rehab your injury, where it's like you can't do that, right? One has to prioritize, and your health has to be priority number one, because if you're not healthy, you can't play anyway. So what good are you working? What good is working on your shot or your handle if you ain't out there to put it all together? Right?
Yeah, preach to the choir, baby.
And the one thing we always give Eric Spoelstra for is finding guys that just finding diamonds in the rough, so to speak, like Gabe Vincent, right? Gabe I couldn't even tell you what college Gabe Vincent went to. Couldn't do it. All I know is he played. I know two things about Gabe Vincent. Well, three things. He's a hell of a pest on defense. He played for the Miami Heat, and during international play, he represents Nigeria. That's all I know about Gabe Vincent. I don't know where he went to school. I don't know where he went to school at. I don't know.
He went to University of California.
So he went to Cal.
Santa Barbara. Not even the official.
Not even Berkeley. He went to,
no.
And then you got guys like Max, like Gabe Vincent, Max Struess.
Max Struess with the Stagg High School in Illinois,
and then went to DePaul, and then had bounced around the G League for a little minute, and then now he's with the Heat. Duncan Robinson went undrafted, and Duncan Robinson went undrafted and has since signed the largest contract to somebody undrafted. His numbers surpassed
that contract is bad, by the way. I don't want to be this guy, but ever since he signed that contract, he's been not good at all.
And that kind of has to be part of another storyline. So how do you get him back into being the sharpshooter that he was? Because it used to be a point where, you could not leave him. He
signed the contract he signed because he was the best shooter in the NBA that season, for real. He was uncanny from three.
Right. So you gotta and then where does Tyler Hero take his game? You gotta ask yourself, are you okay with Tyler Hero being that sixth man, or do you eventually move him to the starting lineup?
Well, I think the thing is, I know he was. So I think with Tyler Hero, he's a good offensive player, but he's a liability on the defensive end of the basketball. And I know we talk about this all the time, that nobody really plays defense in the NBA, but it does matter.
It does.
It does matter. He's a net negative on the defensive side of the ball. So if he doesn't step up his defensive game. And I'm looking at his start. I'm not even sure Duncan Robinson starts for this team. I'm not sure who does start over him. But yeah, Tyler Hero, he's a really good offensive player. But yeah, he's a net negative on the defensive side of the ball, and he's really got to just care about it more than he does.
Yeah, it's an effort. It's definitely an effort thing. Well, they got to replace PJ Tucker because he was starting.
Yeah.
He was the starting.
I mean, they lost PJ Tucker. They lost Markieff Morris. I mean, those are two losses that are pretty substantial. And because of the way their cap situation is with the Miami Heat, they didn't really get to replace them with anybody that was proven. Nikola Jovic is basically their one addition to this roster. We don't really know how good he's going to be as a rookie.
Now it's kind of now the starting five is what you have listed as the starters, right?
Yeah.
Butler, Bam, Lowry at the 1, Struess at the 2, Jimmy at the 3, Duncan Robinson at the 4, which good luck with that.
Yeah, right.
And Bam Adebayo. So me personally, I don't know, because of his shooting ability, that you have to throw Duncan Robinson out there. But like you said,
I think the thing is they don't have anybody else. So.
Caleb Martin. No, I'm not throwing Caleb Martin out there. Caleb Martin shot. I mean, his numbers from three last year were good. He shot 41.3%. That's you can live with that.
I mean, that's solid. That's solid. Can't hate that.
Over 60 games, right? That's a good sample size, right? That's a good knockdown shooter. All right, what's his name? Gabe Vincent shot 36.8. Just round up, 37%. He shot 37% over 68 games. That's okay. Tyler Hero is. I think that tells me they are content with Tyler Hero being the best six man in the league, right? So they are just that's your role. We're gonna, as long as you play for the Miami Heat and as long as we have the pieces that we do, you're the six man. Tyler Hero.
I mean, he's the spark plug. He's the microwave type option.
Definitely, 40, and he shot 40% from three.
And UW is still on this team, so good for UW. Yeah, 42 years. He's gonna do that Tom Brady stuff, or he's just gonna play forever.
Well, he's just. Yeah, he's
a player coach. Let's be real.
He's eventually gonna do what what's his name? What Alonzo Mourning did. Eventually he's just gonna ease into a front office spot. I don't know what, but that's what he's gonna do. Jovic is the wild card here. 6'11", two and a quarter, 225 at 19, like 19
Yeah.
years old,
Yeah.
dude. And you're a first round pick, so like the one thing how you earn your good graces with Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley is, bro, you gotta play defense. You gotta play defense. So I think they got a steal with him. If I could pull up his numbers from overseas.
Well, while you do that, let's talk about best and worst case scenario when it comes to the Miami Heat. Best case scenario, number one seed in the Eastern Conference,
Back to the finals
back to the
already.
finals, win a ship. Um, yeah, they're good. They're good. They're good. They're like they on paper they're good enough to go. But as long as Jimmy Butler's their best player, as long as he's good, he's content. Because Jimmy Butler's stay in most places doesn't seem to last that long because he usually
It's a burnout. It's about a 4 to 5 year
yeah
process. Like
yeah
it's a burnout because we saw how he like dragged that one Bulls team to the playoffs, and
yeah.
it was ugly. He dragged the Timberwolves to the playoffs. That was ugly.
Well, I mean
Philly,
the end of those.
yeah,
Like
that's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying.
them actually making the playoffs wasn't all that bad, but once like the end of the Jimmy Butler era, whatever he ends up playing, usually ends up getting messy.
Like, and this is like how they ended ugly. Like the Bulls era ended ugly. The Timberwolves era ended ugly. The Philly
It
situation
ended ugly. Let's
ended up,
be real.
and to this day they're probably kicking themselves over that one because
Tobias Harris hasn't been even close to as good as Jimmy Butler. So,
hey,
let's be real. Jimmy Butler's putting up 50-point games in the playoffs, and Tobias Harris is like a decent role player at this point. Like, so
like yeah, like that, like there you go. So best case scenario, one seed back to the finals. Again, you were a game 7 away on your home
uh,
court from going back.
yeah, I
Right?
mean they're Jimmy Butler made 3 from going to the finals. Let's talk
Yeah.
worst case scenario for the Miami Heat.
Well, injuries aside, now when we do these worst case scenarios, like me personally, I do injuries aside because if any of these guys get hurt for a key period of time, then yeah, it's game over all she wrote. Like if you lose Jimmy Butler, Bam, or especially those two for a significant length of time, yeah, it's curtains. Good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck.
because they're not talented enough to like overcome those kind of injuries. Kyle Lowry just isn't the player he used to be. My worst case scenario is the Jimmy Butler era Stowers in Miami. Like he just doesn't mesh well. Like there's some friction there. We already saw it a little bit last season with Jimmy Butler not exactly getting along with Bam Adebayo. So maybe Miami has to make a decision at some point between those two players, and they end up making a mid-season trade because it's not working. Worst case scenario is the Miami have to blow this up.
Yeah,
So,
that's worst case scenario.
but we'll see. Moving on from the Miami Heat to the Atlanta Hawks, a very busy team in the offseason. Their starters, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, who they traded for in the offseason. They gave a haul for DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Clint Capella, key reserves, Aaron Holiday, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Maurice Harkless, Onika Okongwu, Justin Holiday, AJ Griffin, Jalen Johnson. They are head coached by Nate McMillan. They were 43-39 last season. This is a team that went 2 seasons ago. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals. They got bounced by them Milwaukee Bucks. This season, they were a play-in team who gave the Miami Heat actually a run for their money as the 8th seed there in the Eastern Conference. Let's talk some serious season storylines. Let's talk first about the big trade they made to get DeJounte Murray, giving up 3 first-round picks and Danilo Gallinari and some stuff. I don't remember what else was in that trade, but it was some stuff in DeJounte Murray and Danilo Gallinari.
Yeah,
Duran Wright and Gordy Dang, I think. Yeah. Kevin Knox, I think, was also part of that trade.
yeah. I've been on Atlanta for not on them, like I've been like on the bandwagon. Like yeah, the Hawks are a good team. I just been paying attention to that situation because they had a log jam in the front court for a while there. You had Clint Capella, Oneko Okongwu, John Collins, who's still a front court player, and why is his name escaping me? Like you had like DeAndre Hunter, who's a swing.
Gordy Dang, Kevin.
Yes, yeah. So it's like you got all this, like you got all these young talent and all these assets, and you're gonna have to figure out what you have in them at some point, right?
Yeah.
So you got Bogdanovich as a wing, Hunter's a wing.
I mean,
Uh,
they had a million wings before they made
they had
like
a right. They had Gallinari, who was a wing,
Kevin Herter. I mean,
wing,
Cam
wing.
Reddish, all of those guys. Like Delon Wright was another
So,
wing. Lou Williams, who barely played for this team last year. Kevin Knox, who they traded for Cam Reddish for. Shariq Cooper, who was their second round pick last season, who's no longer on this team either.
so it's like, what are you doing? Like you just like you just keeping a surplus of talent and not playing a bunch of them. So when you clear the decks kind of by trading some of those guys away, right? So it is what it like. So you kind of fix the issue. Right now, it's with a move for Dejounte Murray. It's obvious, right? You cannot be a playing team this year.
No, for sure not. I mean, I think you make the argument they shouldn't have been a playing team last season either. I mean, this is a roster who's, I mean, Trae Young. I mean, if he had a better record, he would be an MVP candidate. You look at his numbers from last season; he was really good last year.
Yeah, it was
outside of the defensive end of the basketball because he doesn't play defense at all.
So like,
which is why you bring in Johnny Murray to cover a lot of that. I mean, you bring Johnny Murray like, hey, here you go.
So like, the starters for the Hawks is not an issue, right? We are like your starting five, that's set in stone. We know who that is. We know how that's gonna go. It's the key reserves, right? Like so. You draft AJ Griffin, I think, in the first round.
Yep. 2016 pick in this year's draft. Kind of a steal where they got him. Many people had him in the top 10.
So, all right. So, like, what first round player do you know outside of Jalen Smith in Phoenix doesn't play? Right? Like, so you got to play him.
I mean, he had like the highest 3-point percentage in
college.
Yeah, college like last season. Yeah, so.
So like,
I mean, that doesn't necessarily translate into NBA success. I mean, Aaron Nesmith had like the highest 3-point percentage in college. He was literally nothing in the NBA, and he's on his second team now. So
he's on the second. So hopefully, same thing. Like Boston literally had the same issue. It's like you got all these young dudes. Like, what do you have in it? You got to play them. You got to see what you got. And hopefully now he's in a situation Aaron Nesmith is where he's going to play, and they can see what he is. Season storylines for Atlanta. Obviously, the first one is how does Trae Young and Dejounte Murray mesh in the backcourt. The second storyline, what's going on with John Collins? Right, like it was.
I mean, they're not trading him, so I mean, if that was going to happen, it would happen by now. So
I mean, like not necessarily because like it's one of those situations where like, it was just like Kevin Durant. Like, bro, like okay, you may be unhappy. You may want to trade, but guess what? We don't have to trade you.
It's not quite like Kevin Durant.
No, bro, that went way over your head. I'm not saying he's Kevin Durant.
No, I know, but that situation is not even close to the same. I mean, come on.
And what? How come it's not? He's not happy in Atlanta. He doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, but John Collins doesn't have the stature of a Kevin Durant. Like you can't just decrease the trade and be like, okay, well you're and not the mention John Collins never came out publicly saying I want out of here. Like he looks unhappy. Like the narrative around him is he's unhappy here. But like he's never really. If people came out, like John Collins came out today, it was like, hey, I want to trade.
Right. So say that. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Like, oh, he's not Kevin Durant. I know he's not Kevin Durant. I know, like. The situation, like, it's not the same in that sense. You know,
not even close.
You know exactly what I'm saying, bro.
I know.
Don't.
I just think comparing those two situations is a little ridiculous.
It's not though. You got two dudes who are unhappy. The only difference is one dude voiced his frustration, and the other one really hasn't. But
he doesn't have the stature to even make a like.
Who gives a shit about stature? Who cares?
I mean, John Collins, man.
Unhappy is unhappy. Unhappy is unhappy. I don't care, bro. Like, because he's not. Because he's not.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So because he's not a Kevin Durant stature player, he can't say I'm unhappy. Where do you get off saying that?
Anyways,
No, like
I also think like so their backcourt, their front court is still a log jam. So like if I was the Atlanta Hawks, I'd be trying to move Clint Capella for another piece because I think Onyeka Okongwu is good enough to be their starting center.
I would trade him.
Okongwu?
Yeah, you can get more. You can get way more for him. Like Clint Capella, I know what he is. I know what I'm getting out of Clint Capella.
I mean, I guess, but I think. What are you doing? Are you okay? What's going on? Okay, anyways. No, I'm talking about my cat is having a hard time right now.
I heard. Would you consider trading Bogdanovich?
No, I think he's too valuable as a wing. Like I think they traded away what they could at the wing position. They're kind of weak there now. I mean, they traded away Neil Gallinari. They traded away, what's the other guy's name? Kevin Herter and Cam Reddish and DeLon Rice no longer on this roster. I think they're actually kind of thin at that wing position. I mean, I know they've got Justin Holiday and his brother Aaron Holiday. They also signed Frank Kaminsky, who I don't care about at this point in his career.
We know who he is.
They tried Trenton Forrest too, who's a decent basketball player, but I'd be looking to move Clint Capella. I think Clint Capella has more value on the open market than Onyeka Okongwu, because people like to trade for people that are established. They don't usually like to, especially in a midseason trade. Like they're not going to trade for potential as much. Can you oh, stop it. Sorry, man. I'm sorry, dude. My cat's having a moment. I don't know what's going
on. I don't know. But it also depends on who's doing it.
I mean, obviously, it matters who's doing the trading. I'm actually kind of surprised that John Collins wasn't involved in the DeJounte Murray trade. To be a little bit honest with you, as you said, he's unhappy. I do think they're going to try to move him at some point. Maybe not this season or next season, but at some point before his contract's up.
He could definitely be a deadline deal. Especially if the season isn't going how they want it to go. Like I can definitely see, him being a deadline deal.
Yeah. How about best case and worst case scenario for the Atlanta Hawks?
Best case scenario, another trip to the Eastern Conference Finals because I don't think they're good enough to actually beat a Boston or Milwaukee. Or, well, I don't know about the Heat anymore because the two guys that they used to defend Trae Young aren't there no more. Like PJ Tucker did a lot of he guarded Trae Young quite a bit in that series, so he's no longer there. But nonetheless, I don't think they're good enough to be a fully healthy Boston team, Milwaukee team, a Philly team. So another trip to the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe. Second round, depending on the matchup. I don't know. That's best case scenario for me. Well, for me, for them.
I tend to agree with you on that. I think I don't think Milwaukee fully healthy, they have no chance against Milwaukee fully healthy. But it's because Giannis is that dude. I mean, if they get lucky, maybe Milwaukee gets balanced. I think they can hang with. I think they can for sure hang with Boston. But yeah, this is an Eastern Conference Finals team at its core. Worst case scenario is DeJounte Murray, Trae Young, because they pushed all their chips to the middle. They've traded away all the draft picks they can for the next 5 years or 10 years almost. You've traded everything away you can to try to push the chips all the way to the middle. And DeJounte Murray, who's going to need a new contract, not this season, but next season, an extension at some point. Because they're also going to be expecting Trae Young to play a lot off the ball because DeJounte Murray isn't nearly the shooter that Trae Young is, and maybe that they want Trae Young to take more of a Steph Curry role. And he may just not be that guy. He's a good basketball player and he can score, but he's the worst defender in the NBA statistically. They might just not click, and the worst case scenario, they end up having to move DeJounte Murray next offseason because they don't want to resign him because the mesh doesn't work well. They end up missing the playoffs.
So what do you do? Okay, so what do you do if they are playing team again?
I would look to trade DeJounte Murray, but his value is you're not going to get even close to what you have traded for him. I mean, if this team is again in the playoff tournament, they're going to look at DeJounte Murray being the major addition to this roster and be like, hey, that's the guy who doesn't really fit. And
Would you consider moving off of Nate McMillan?
no, I think he's a good head coach. He never should have got fired from Indiana. As me and you talk about all the time.
We do stuff like that. Like my thing is, the reason I brought that scenario up is because okay, you got a guy who he took over halfway from Lloyd Pierce.
Yeah.
They were like 13th in the East. He takes over and they go from 13th in the East to 5th, right, and make the playoffs. So you go from, and that's the year that that's the Eastern Conference Final. So you go from Eastern Conference Final to play in, and then if you go another year where you so you go from Eastern Conference Final, play in again, that conversation is probably going to be had with the powers that be, because at this point you're not like you're past progression, you're at a plateau because you spent 2 years at the same spot. So that's what I'm saying. Like
I don't disagree with you on that front, because especially because you just need because they pushed all their chips to the middle. So obviously, you have to, if it doesn't work out, the decision will be made between DeJounte Murray and Nate McMillan, and so obviously they're going to probably roll with the guy DeJounte Murray because they're going to want to re-sign him. They just traded a haul for him, and maybe Nate McMillan doesn't work, and Trae Young is unhappy, and so I could see that scenario where they maybe move off him if they don't have a successful season this year.
But I also think that the roadblock that they come into with that is you got guys like Trae Young and Clint Capella, whose word just let it be, whose word has, especially Trae Young, his word holds some merit when it comes to decision making. So if they talk about moving off of Nate McMillan and they don't consult him, now you run the risk of upsetting your franchise player. And one of the issues that we always talk about is, all right, so if you fire this dude, who do you replace him with? Who's the hot shot candidate? Who's the...
I mean, it's always go back to Kenny Atkinson. I mean, that guy is, when we talk about a hot shot assistant, that's the guy.
That's the guy.
Yeah, he's the one. Let's move on from there to the Charlotte Hornets, who may have had the worst offseason this year. The starters, the LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, Mason Plumlee, Kelly Oubre Jr., I guess, is the starting small forward. I don't actually know for sure. Key reserve. If you go to ESPN.com, you look at the Charlotte Hornets, they their small forward position is just missing from the starting lineup, or shooting guard. It might be shooting guard. It's just one of those. It's just they don't have it. Key reserves: Jalen McDaniels, Mark Williams, they drafted James Bouknight, who had a very underwhelming rookie season. Terry Rozier, Kai Jones also had an underwhelming rookie season. Cody Martin. Then Steve Clifford is again the head coach of this team for some reason. Their record last season 43-39. Obviously, big missing part of this is the Miles Bridges. We're not going to talk about his scenario, but it's a big loss for this team as a basketball team. On the basketball court, it's a big loss for the Charlotte Hornets. They did not do anything, in my opinion, to make this team better in the offseason. They just and they're running the risk of LaMelo Ball being like, hey, get me out of here. For real. The Charlotte Hornets, especially because who his dad is, yeah.
Well, okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because we ain't heard a peep out of LeVar Ball in 5 years. So stop.
True.
Stop.
Fair enough.
Stop that. Also, $200 million is $200 million. Ain't he's not turning down $200 million. He's not happening.
It's true.
Second, Miles Bridges did that to himself.
True. Also true.
Right? You have nobody to blame in this situation, in this scenario, but you, right? You cannot be mad at the organization for not standing by you because
they haven't rescinded their qualifying offer, so let's not play like the Charlotte Hornets won't want him back. They haven't rescinded their qualifying offer. Miles Bridges thinks he's going to get more money somewhere else, but I actually imagine Miles Bridges is going to end up on this team before the season starts. So.
Well, as long as he got this going on, ain't nobody touching it. Charlotte or anybody.
I mean, their qualifying offer is still out there. They haven't rescinded it. So
is it signed?
What?
Is it signed? What good is an offer if it's not signed?
Yeah, I know, but like if you're, you think the backlash is going to be what it is. I mean, no.
It was.
They haven't pulled it either, though. I mean, it's still out there.
Okay, was Pan put the paper?
Why? If I Miles Bridges, though, why haven't you signed it? Or you're not getting anything else anywhere else? His NBA career might be over. So let's not even talk about Miles Bridges. Let's talk about like the players on the roster today. This starting lineup is underwhelming at best. PJ Washington is a fine four man. He stretch the floor. He could shoot a little bit. Mason Plumlee at one point was the best passing big man in the NBA. He's sure gotten passed up by Jokic and some other people on the list. I'm not going to go into the list. Kelly Oubre Jr. is a good small forward. He's not really, I wouldn't call him a starter material player at this point, but he can play a little bit. Well, Gordon Hayward, when he's healthy, he's a good basketball player.
Well, we saw Kelly Oubre had that terrible year in Golden State where he shot like 26% from three.
Yeah.
And you already know what I'm talking about. Like the first 20 games of the season, he was like 2 for 20. Like it was god awful, and he never really recovered from that. So he had to get out of there. And he goes to Charlotte, and I kind of feel like certain players fit better in certain markets. Right, so like you put a Kelly Oubre in a Charlotte situation where it's medium-sized market, your expectations are there, but they're not lofty, right? You're not championship conversation, right? It's not championship or bust.
I mean, they rehired Steve Clifford, who had like no success there in Charlotte. I mean, they did take him into the playoffs one time, and he rehired. I just don't understand that coaching decision at all. But yeah, Kelly Oubre, yeah, he was. I mean, he's been there for two seasons now. This will be his second season. Like, I just don't think there's a lot of talent on this team outside of LaMelo Ball. Like, I just don't see it.
No, I mean, like I obviously like you're hoping for more out of. You're hoping Gordon Hayward plays more than 50 games, right?
I think that's. I mean, at this point, I mean, I think that's asking for a lot out of Gordon Hayward. I mean,
yeah. So it's obviously like when they put this thing together, you were kind of hoping that Gordon Hayward would turn back the clock because it went. He fell out of the rotation pretty fast there in Boston because
he got hurt immediately.
He got hurt, but then all of a sudden, like you got the emergence of not Jason Tatum, but I don't think they expected Jaylen Brown to turn into what he's turned into. So when that happened, that kind of made him very, very, very expendable, which is why he's no longer in Boston. PJ Washington, outside of the baby mama drama, and that clearly affected his play last season. Like,
yeah,
bro, like there is nothing worse than having baby mama drama and having to go viral. Like, bro, like you went viral, and there was nothing you could really do about it.
Not to mention, he's a fine player, but he's nothing like baby mama drama fine failure. Like he can stretch the floor, shoot the three a little bit, but yeah, his off the court stuff was uber distracting.
Very. So Mason, I get it. Mason Plumlee, like you said, you know what Mason Plumlee is. Good rebounder. You gonna get anywhere from 8 to 10 rebounds a game from Mason Plumlee, couple blocks.
Yeah.
Like some wild plays. Again, like the issue here is Book Knight, Kai Jones, right? Two young dudes.
James Bouknight spent a lot of last season in the G League, so.
And I get it because like if I'm who was the coach at the time? Borrego, James
Borregos, yeah.
So if I'm James Borrego, who am I playing? Who am I taking minutes from to play James Bouknight? Melo? No. Terry Rozier? No. I expect Terry Rozier to be a trade chip if they don't
No, they just extended him. I'd be shocked that they traded him at this point. I spent a lot of my life being wrong, so I could be wrong on this one. I would be shocked if they traded Terry Rozier. I mean, they just literally just gave him an extension,
and it means nothing. It really doesn't.
It's true. But I mean, if you don't like a guy, I mean, don't extend him unless you want to just keep the asset, just to keep the asset,
And
which
then,
is what teams do.
Another big that you have listed on here, what's his name? Vernon Carey. He was a second-round draft pick a year ago. Also spent time in the G League. You got bigs on this roster that you got young talent on this roster that you have to see what they are. Nothing irks my soul more than stockpiling talent. And the next team we get to, which is probably the Orlando Magic,
The Wizards.
The Orlando Magic do this too, and it's just like, why? What are you doing? So storylines, obviously, Melo Ball extension, right?
Yeah.
We already know small and mid market teams have a hard time keeping their best players.
Well, I mean, especially when they're not good. So
when they're not good,
which they will be. I mean, come on, let's be real. Charlotte's gonna stink. Like they might be the worst team in this division next season. Like outside of LaMelo Ball, none of this is really with optimism. Best case scenario. Let's talk worst case.
Best case scenario, solid playoff team. Like no play in, like you make the playoffs. Like you don't have to worry about no seeding, sliding in the like you are seeded 1 through 8. You're like you are
1 through 6.
1 through 6, or 1 through like you are in, right? That's best case. That's best. Worst case, play in again. Like you are just where you just stay where you are. You stay where you are.
I think their best case scenario is making the play-in. I do not think they're a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference by any shadow of a doubt. They are for sure not. Worst case scenario is
they get worse.
They're just not good this season at all. I mean, whatever off the court stuff we talk about Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges was good last season. He was their second best player, and they basically replaced him with no one, literally no one.
Well, he was the first, like he was the most improved player for like the first 2 months,
I mean,
2 months of the season, 3 months of the season, and then all of a sudden it was like no downhill.
But, I mean, but let's not pretend like he wasn't a good basketball player last season. They replaced him with nobody. They replaced him with literally nobody. And yeah, Charlotte. This is going to be the hot take. This is going to be the worst team in this division. They might have like 25 wins next season. For real.
I don't think they're going to be that bad.
They will be. They will be for sure. Like outside of LaMelo Ball, none of the rest of the stuff on the roster fills you with optimism at all. And they hired Steve Clifford. I still head scratching as hell. The fact that they were like, oh hey, the guy won nothing. Let's bring him back. We fired this guy for a reason. Come on, it's absurd. It's stupid.
It's a panic move, David.
It is.
The coach that they originally wanted backed out.
What, Kenny Atkinson, right?
Yeah, the coach that they originally wanted backed out. So it's like, damn, we are a month away from training camp. We need a coach, and fast.
Like, let's just bring back the guy who didn't win anything. Like, I mean, I'm also about Kenny Atkinson. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna. Do I want to stay an assistant in Golden State and maybe win some more jewelry, or do I want to go coach the Hornets, where their best team is LaMelo Ball? Their best player is LaMelo Ball, and everything else is kind of trash.
And to this day, it's still not said. It was still not said or discovered why he backed out of that deal. But it's not like Michael Jordan was like, you know what? I'm down. I'm stuck between 2 coaches. Yeah. Kenny Atkinson, I'm going to go with Steve Clifford. Like, no.
I know. It's just that's just coaching doesn't make any sense at all. I just don't understand it.
Okay.
Like you gotta dust it off like somebody else.
Let's talk who.
I don't know. I mean, what was the name of the guy? The guy who coached the Nuggets for one season then got fired. Like, let's dust him off and let's figure out if he can still coach.
Oh, so let's dust off a guy who didn't win anything.
Yeah, for a guy who didn't win anything. I just don't understand it. Moving on to the Washington Wizards. Stars Bradley Beal fresh off that hot new contract with that no trade clause, which, If you watch any of other stuff, I don't necessarily love. Monte Morris, starting point guard. Will Barton, Will the Thrill. Kyle Kuzma, Kristaps Porzingis is the starting five. Key reserves, DeLon Wright, Johnny Davis, who they drafted in the round. Denny Avdia, Rui Hachimura, Daniel Gafford, who the Bulls should never have traded. Corey Kispert and Taj Gibson. Wes Unseld Jr. is their coach. They were 35 and 47 last season. Let's talk some storylines when it comes to the Wizards.
Honestly, the big one is Bradley Beal, right? Like this it's clear that the Wizards are two teams. One, a team with Bradley Beal, and a team without Bradley Beal.
Well, I mean, based on what they paid him, they're hoping he's going to be on the court a lot.
So it's me personally. It's the no trade clause for me, right? Like it's already hard to trade for you because of the absurd amount of money you're making. But when
he's the highest or one of the highest paid players in the NBA. He's top 5 in paid. Is he the 5th best player in the NBA? Come on.
Like that, so like you got that on top of if we want to trade you, we basically have to run it by you and you say yes or no. It's already going to be difficult to trade you. Now you're just adding more difficult to what's already difficult. You're already looking at not being a good team. I mean, like, does the duo of Bradley Beal and Porzingis interest me? Absolutely. Yeah. Like, would I like to see those two dudes for a full season, see what they can do? Hell yeah. Right? Porzingis is trying to get back to being what he was labeled in New York. He's trying to be the unicorn again. Right, and
he had some spurts where he was real good. His availability is always the question mark.
Right, and he kind of falls into that role of like the super tall players always have like when they own like they are top 5 whatever, but when they're hurt it's like it's like the injuries just keep coming.
I mean, it's the same conversation. I mean, we talked about this when, what's his name got hurt for the Thunder. Oh my God.
Holmgren.
Yeah, Holmgren. I mean, like those lower leg injuries are always kind of a problem for players of his stature. Like, because that's what happened. I mean, that's the conversation people are having. Like, right. Where Chet Holmgren or pursuing has had like an ACL tear, and he's never really been healthy since then. And like those lower leg injuries just kind of be the death knell for tall players.
And I think what Porzingis, like you got to keep in mind, like this was a guy who was booed on draft night, proved people wrong initially in New York because they like, oh, this dude is better than we gave him credit for. Got shipped off to Dallas, fell out of favor with Luka and the crew there. Now he's in DC. Hoping to, change the narrative about him. It's the two dudes that Washington really needs to step up is Denny Avdia and Rui. Those two dudes got to have big ears.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially Denny Avdia. Yeah. I mean, he's been super. I mean, Rui Hachimura. I mean, outside he's been hurt a little bit during his 3 seasons now or 4 seasons now in the NBA. Because when he's good, when he's healthy, he's been real good. But yeah, he needs to for sure stay healthy. And yeah, Denny Avdia has been super underwhelming. A lot of people, like with Bull fans, we were like, "Oh yeah, the Bulls should take that guy." Like, Patrick Williams has been better than Denny Avdia, at least through 4.
Yeah. And don't even get me started on Daniel Gafford. I was like,
man, that trade made 0 sense even when it happened, and now it looks way worse. Like Daniel Ty, like we get Daniel Ty, like who did nothing for us. So like we were like a player. Like I don't understand why we even made that deal.
I don't either. So like obviously like the Bradley Beal storyline, the Denny Avdia, Rui Hachimura improvement storyline. Other than that, I don't really have many storylines for Washington.
I mean, they're locked into this roster. I mean, Bradley Beal. I do like trading away some defensive pieces to get some more offensive pieces. Like I think was a pretty smart move. Like getting Monte Morris and Will Barton for KCP, and I don't remember who the other player was in that trade, but like getting more offensive-minded players is probably a good move for the Wizards. Let's talk best and worst case scenario.
Best case scenario? Oh my God. Do they have a best case scenario? No, I'm
Man, throw the shade, man. It's fucking 12:30 in the morning, in the afternoon.
it's not. Oh, it's 12:30 by you. It's 11:43 by. It's 11:43 here. I like no, like seriously. At the end of the day, Bradley Beal is the straw that makes this drink stir, and obviously, you know him there. Like they're a better team, but when he's not there, I don't have to worry about Kyle Kuzma hurting me on a consistent basis. I don't have to worry about Will Barton or Monte Morris hurting me on a consistent basis. You're asking a lot out of Johnny Davis. This is what 10th overall.
Yeah, something like that.
Top like yeah. So yeah, like best case scenario. I mean, play in like after missing the playoffs the last what handful of years. So
2 years. I mean,
yeah, best case scenario, you're a play-in team, right?
I agree with you. Actually, I think their best case scenario is they're a play-in team this season. I like looking at the roster. I don't think it's all that good. I think they're better than the Hornets, but not by much. We'll talk worst case scenario for the Charlotte Hornets or for the Washington Wizards.
Worst case scenario, they finally find somebody to trade Bradley Beal to, and they just blow this whole thing up.
Which they should have done 2 years ago. Their worst case scenario, they're not trading Bradley Beal this season. I would be shocked if they did. Where? Who knows? But yeah, worst case scenario, they're a bottom feeder team. They end up as like a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. Like this is a roster they expect to go to the playoffs to be like a juggernaut in the Eastern Conference. They won't be. Worst case.
I just think about the Agent Zero days, the Gilbert Arenas days of this team, of this organization, and you could when with Gilbert Arenas, Deshaun Stevenson, Antoine Jameson, like you could pencil this team in for a top 6 seed. Like they 4 through 6, they were going to be somewhere in there.
Yeah,
right.
And we for sure live in different times now.
And
when they had John Wall and Bradley Beal, I mean they were just right away from being an Eastern Conference Finals team. Like that's how good they were.
And then but the issue with that is like it was just one season of that, and then they literally took turns of I'm hurt, you're hurt, I'm hurt, you're hurt. Like I don't think they ever played a full 82 together.
No, they did not. But not after that season for sure. Bradley Beal and Kyle, yeah, they took turns getting hurt. Last team in this division, Orlando Magic. Starters: Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr. is their starting center. Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris. I put an asterisk next there because he did get hurt. I do not know when his timetable is to return. Jonathan Isaac has not played in 2 years. Should make a return this season. Mo Bamba, fresh off that new contract there with the Orlando Magic. R.J. Hampton, Terrence Ross, Kume Okeye, head coach Jamal Mosley. Record last year 22-60. Let's talk some storylines when it comes to the Orlando Magic.
Obviously, you got the number 1 overall pick in Paolo Banchero. First storyline is you have to prove why he was the number 1 overall pick. All right, he's no 1 overall pick. He gets a Jordan Brand deal out the gate. Hasn't played a damn NBA minute yet. You got to prove why you're worth all this hype, right? Because if you're not, then it's, hey, we missed out on another one. Improvement for Franz Wagner, who looks like he's going to be very good. He's one of my breakout players of the year. Jalen Suggs, right? And that what do you have left in R.J. Hampton, who is,
he was a G League Ignite player, right?
R.J. Hampton.
Or no, he went overseas.
He went to the NBL too.
Yeah, he went to that the New Zealand league, right?
Yeah, the team in New Zealand plays in that Australian league, so yeah. But yeah, he went over there. Obviously, like Jonathan Isaac, Mo Bamba, what do you got? Right, like Because if I was Mo Bamba, there's no way I'm signing that contract with them. Like, you barely played me, so I'm going to go somewhere where I know for a fact I
Well, I
could
mean,
play.
he essentially had his best season as a pro. Not that saying a whole lot last
That's
season.
that's not right. Like, your point about Jonathan Isaacs is like, bro, like, you haven't played in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, they signed him to a deal, and then he has been hurt basically since.
Right? Like, so that's my storyline with them. Like, I was like the coaching controversy with Jamal Mosley. I think that's maybe had that's gone.
There's a coaching controversy when it comes.
Yeah, because remember, everybody thought Becky Hammond was going to get that
Oh
job.
yeah, I mean, come on.
What?
I just I don't think that's a controversy. Like,
It was though, because like,
didn't she just win the WNBA title?
No, they're still playing. So you got Becky Hammond, who spent years
Under Pop? I know.
under Pop, and then so like it's like, all right, so the NBA is gonna be progressive again. They're gonna break through that glass ceiling again. The Orlando Magic are gonna do it. They're gonna hire the first female head coach in NBA history, and then they make a complete left turn and hire some guy that nobody ever heard of. Where was Jamal Mosley at before he got the Orlando head coaching gig?
I cannot answer that question. He may have been a assistant in Boston, I think, or something like that.
That's why it's controversial.
But I think now that's for sure not that people aren't talking about that anymore.
Maybe not, but it's if you go 22-60 again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously. So he was the assistant in Dallas under Carlisle before he got the job in Orlando.
Never heard, still ain't heard of because
for sure. I mean, he was the assistant for 7 years there in Orlando, or in Dallas before he got under Carlisle. So I mean, yeah, but I think at the top, maybe at the time, the people, because I remember we for sure talked about that when we did the prime last year. We talked about him getting the job because it's not somebody anybody ever heard of. But I don't think people are talking about that still now. I think when we're talking about the players on the floor, I think you got to hope that like Paolo Banchero is the guy you want him to be. And Wendell Carter Jr. is on one of the team friendliest deals in the NBA right now. So
yeah, well, he's carrying the chip on his shoulder. He feels like he got casted out in Chicago because you were not good when you were here. You weren't good when you were here, dude. Like, it's okay. Like, if you play better, and
we don't feel the need to trade for Vucevic if you play better. Like, for real. Like Jalen Suggs and Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, Jalen Suggs. If there's no improvement, you got Fultz, you got Gary Harris. I know he's hurt, but he's still there. Terrence Ross, like it's
Terrence Ross will not finish this season on the roster. I've been saying that for 2 years that I thought they would trade him, and they haven't yet. So who knows?
And he's still
there. It's still there. The guy who has a double nickel game as a member of the Toronto Raptors. I think he is the highest scoring player to ever play for the Raptors. He has the highest scoring game. He's got a double nickel game. I'm pretty sure.
He's that. He got that. He's a dunk champion. He's like, if you're Orlando, right? Best case scenario time. If you're Orlando, right? 22. So if you went 22-60 last year, like, where do you go? Like, the only way to go is up, right? You would think, right? So best case scenario is you somehow, like, you're not going to go from 22-60 to shoe in for the playoffs. That's just it doesn't work like that. Why? Because you're still a young team. You're still going to make dumb mistakes.
And the East is just deep.
East is just deep. So your hope is a play-in spot, right? If you get to the 10 seed, that's a 5 jump. A 5 spot improvement. You went from like dead last in the East to play-in, right? That's up 5 spots, right? Like that's best case scenario.
Worst case scenario is
you're picking first overall again, right? Like, maybe not first overall, but like your top 3, 4, 5.
So when we do these predictions, like these worst and best case scenarios, when it comes to teams like this, me and you are like usually on like the complete opposite ends, and we're on the opposite end on this too. I think the
Okay.
best case scenario is that they end up with top 5 pick and they add another piece to this puzzle. Their worst case scenario, I think, is they make the play in. Like for like, I'm just saying, like if they make the play in, they're like middle of the pack Eastern Conference team. They get a piece in the draft that doesn't really move the needle either way, because they're still like a for sure like point guard away from being like really good. Like if you had like a top flight point guard, like if they get what's the
Scoot Henderson.
yeah, if they get him in the draft, like that would make them really interesting. Like, but if they get like if they have the 10th pick in the draft, they're not going to get that guy. Like he's going to be gone. So yeah, my best case scenario is they stink and they're the top. They end up with the top 5 pick. Worst case scenario is they make the play-in. Like for real. Like
again, my issue with that logic is okay. So like if you like you're asking them to be bad on purpose.
Not on purpose. I mean, like I don't expect Gary Harris to play at all this season. Like Jonathan Isaac, bringing him back, we'll see what that looks like. Like they're like you look at the roster, like they have a lot of young potential, but like none of this is proven at all. Like RJ Hampton's been kind of trashed since he got in the NBA. Like Terrence Ross is going to get traded before the season ends.
What good is adding more young talent to trash?
Because you need to continue putting puzzle pieces.
Building what?
I mean, if Paulo Banchero is that guy, I mean, Jalen Suggs has been a swing and a miss. I mean, they would have been way better if they drafted like. Imagine if the team had Josh Giddey. Like, imagine if they had Josh Giddey, if they drafted Josh Giddey instead of Jalen Suggs. Like, can you imagine how good they'd be? Like, we're talking about a playoff team next season if they had Josh Giddey.
Maybe.
No, for sure. Like, if they had Josh Giddey, Franz Wagner, and Paulo, that's a playoff team. Like, for real.
Well, first things first. Like, we're not changing what happened to them. Josh Giddey did get hurt, so that's still a thing. So if he got hurt, he got hurt in OKC. He gets hurt.
Yeah. But they basically shut him down because they were like, "Oh, we're the Thunder. We're not going to try to win games." Like they're a playoff. They're a playoff team this season if they have Josh Giddey over Jalen Suggs. They are.
Orlando wouldn't have, like last year. Orlando wouldn't have shut them down. Like Jonathan Isaac literally hasn't played a game in 2 years. Do you really think?
This is the question. Who would you rather have today, Jalen Suggs or Josh Giddey?
Well, it's not. That's
not close. It's not close. It's not close. Can you imagine if they had Josh?
But back to the original, like you're adding talent to you're adding more young talent to an already log jam of young talent.
I mean,
you got young dude, like you literally have a 6'10" small forward who hasn't played in 2 years, and guess what? He's gonna want his minutes back. He's gonna want that back,
and they paid him. Yeah, they gave him a bunch of money. So, I'm just saying, if I'm Orlando, I don't want to be good this season. I want a top 5 pick. I want Scoot Henderson. I want him to be my starting point guard next season. I think if they added him to if they had Josh Giddey right now, I'm just saying that decision to take Jalen Suggs at the time, it was a no-brainer decision, but looking at it now, it was not a good choice at all. Like if they had, everybody gave the Thunder or the Raptors all of that fleck for taking Scotty Barnes over Jalen Suggs when it happened, but like that looks like a money decision now.
Well, yeah, so, one guy was rookie of the year, not my rookie of the year. No disrespect, Scotty Barnes.
Not my rookie of the year either, but no disrespect.
My rookie of the year was Evan Mobley. But Evan Mobley didn't play enough games to qualify.
I mean, Scotty Barnes was just really good.
Scotty Barnes was really good. I got to
But mean, the Raptors wouldn't trade him for Kevin Durant. Yeah, that's how good he was last season. Like we're not trading this guy for Kevin Durant. Like Kevin Durant, top 5 player in the NBA.
I don't even know if the rotation is set in stone, but it's for me, like it's the reserve issue, right? Like who plays? So Gary Harris has the asterisk. What's his injury, by the way?
It's a knee, I think. He's gonna miss like 2 months, I think.
Oh, that's not terrible.
Yeah.
He's gonna play.
I mean, he didn't play a lot last season, so
That's last season. That's a new season.
so he tore his meniscus in his left knee. So,
Do you have a date? Does it say when?
so this happened in September
Of last year.
No. Hold on. Hold on a second.
Because it's September now.
Yeah, it happened at like at the beginning of the month. So yeah, September 2nd.
So he'll be back. He should be back by, if everything goes right, rehab and what.
A month. So he could potentially make it back by the start of the season. But I mean, he didn't play much for them last season either. So I'm honestly surprised that he even resigned with them. So I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. So like they got some stuff to figure out in Orlando. Right?
Yep.
You're starting to get to the situation where it's like you got too much young talent to be bad.
Yeah, I think like they're entering the territory like they should have the pieces now. Like they should be pushing for a playoff spot, but I don't think they will.
Because I think about it, like if you spend if you spend 4 to 5 years with top 5 picks, and this past season you had 2, right? Like you had 2 top 5.
2 years ago.
2 years ago you had 2 top 10 picks.
Yeah.
Like you're all right. So because Cole Anthony, first round pick, Jalen Suggs. No, was Cole Anthony a first round pick?
I don't think so.
Well, Jalen Suggs, first round pick. Franz Wagner was a first round pick. Banchero was first overall. We just talked about that. Markelle Fultz was a former first round pick. Jonathan Isaacs was a first round pick.
I mean, Markelle Fultz was the former first
overall pick. Mo Bamba was a first round pick. And RJ Hampton was a former first round pick.
Jonathan Isaac was taken like 16th overall. He was a first round pick. Terrence Ross was a former first round pick.
So, like, you may not have been drafted by the team you're on now, but at some point in time, you were a first round pick. Yeah. And Gary Harris was a first round pick.
Yep. It was part of that trade where they Yusuf Nurkic and Gary Harris traded for
Doug McDermott.
Yeah.
And Cole Anthony was a first round pick, 15th overall. So you got first. Wendell Carter Jr. was a first round pick. Fultz, first overall. Gary Harris, first round pick. Jonathan Isaacs, first. Your whole team outside of Okiki, because I don't really know too much about him, was a first round pick. And this dude, and he was a first round pick. He was drafted 16th overall.
Eventually you got to put these pieces together. So, I guess we'll see.
So you talking about tanking? Well, not like worst.
I'm not talking about tanking.
Your best case scenario is for them to add another first round pick to 15 first round picks.
They're still a piece away. That's for damn sure. We'll see what ends up happening with the Orlando Magic. This has been our. I never updated that graphic.
So here's my thing. I don't think they're a piece away. I think they're a coach away. I don't like the coach.
I'm not a huge fan of their coach, and I don't think Dwight Howard's walking through that door. So disrespectful. I mean, so disrespectful that he's not part of the top 75 players of all time. Like for real, Dwight Howard is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like for real, it's like
first ballot Hall of Fame. He ain't got no ring. Like I mean, he has a ring.
Yeah, he does have a ring, but.
He wins they make the list, and no, he won the ring before they make the list.
Yeah, he did. He did. I mean, Derrick Rose has his MVP.
Derrick Rose, oh my!
I will talk about that until that is a mantle I will stand on until I die. TJ left the show. But that's our Southeast Division preview. TJ almost said it. He almost said it. That was crazy. We'll be back here tomorrow breaking down some NFL action. Kickoff is just about to be under a couple of minutes. Dave Helping right there with Mr. TJ Hopkins. We'll be back here tomorrow. And we're bringing the heat here at Prime Sports. One of y'all. Good night.